Hi, it's Rand Smith with System 7 Coaching, and today it's a time for another marketing secret that you won't hear anyplace else but right here. What am I talking about? Well, these are laws, emotional triggers, if you will, triggers that you can use in your business to help you do more business in less time and put more net bottom line dollars in your pocket. So let's take a look at the first emotional trigger, shall we? Number one is consistency, and it says once a decision is made, the decision maker is inclined to continue to act in a way that is consistent with their previous action. Now the action step. If a prospect lists their home with you or hires you as a buyer's agent, it is at that very moment the ideal time to add something else for them to purchase from you. For example, when you secure a listing, immediately enroll them into your smart home buyer service or your smart buyer service or your home finder service. That's the ideal time. So if you secure a home buyer for something, then do they have a home to sell? In that moment, secure them as something else. Said another way and used in another example that will make you more money. Let's suppose that you are at the point where you're about to get a listing agreement signed. And in fact, they're ready to sign it. They've made a decision, and you can see that. Right then and there, you should pull out your Surefire Sale Addendum and get automatic price reductions every 30 days until that home is sold. But Rand, they're not going to do that. Why wouldn't they? If the home doesn't sell in 30 days or less, what's the one and only reason that would be keeping it from selling? What's the one and only reason it wouldn't have sold? That's right, the price. So if it's a pricing strategy that is the critical issue, and it is, you guys, then we have to start telling them that and have the smart tools that we need in order to secure them and have automatic price reductions. Can you imagine if every listing you took had an automatic price reduction, pre-approved, in writing, every 30 days until it's sold? There is a way to do it. Be looking for our listing presentation, and you'll get all the tools you need to do all the business you decide to do. So, to recap, trigger number one, consistency. Once they've made a decision, they're going to stay in decision-making mode with other decisions that have to do with that. Emotional trigger number two. Products or services have a nature. Now, each product or service has its own personality and a nature, a special series of characteristics that can relate your product or service to a prospect. Recognize its nature and relate its characteristics to the prospect, and you will have the key to persuading your prospect. Now for the action step. Determine the main reasons why people buy your product or service from both an emotional and logical level. Then, craft your sales presentation to bring out those reasons. What are some of the reasons that your prospect would be interested in your product or service? Here's a specific example so you won't have to wonder how to use this. I offer an easy exit listing agreement so that if they list their home with me, find that I'm not doing everything I promised, they can pick up the phone, give me a call, I'll cancel the listing myself, I'll even refer them to my best competitor. So, what is the nature of that particular service that I provide? Well, the nature of it, its characteristics are that they're not stuck with an agent that's not doing the job for them. And they may have just been stuck with somebody who didn't do the job, like an expired listing. It's one of their fears. I have a solution to that. So I know its characteristics are going to speak to the people who don't want to get locked into a long list agreement. So I aim those characteristics, the nature of that particular system, to the consumer, to my client, my prospect. And when you do that, it's incredible the power that you can add and the impact you can add to your marketing and your words. Let's go to emotional trigger number three. The prospects also have a nature. So you have a great product or a service, and you've figured out the basic appeal of your product or service in both emotional and logical ways. The next step is to learn about your prospect. What makes him or her tick? What are the emotional and logical reasons that your prospect will buy your product or service? Once you know these reasons, you'll have the key to effective persuasion. I'll tell you how to do that in just a minute, but let's go to the action step. Talk to your prospects. Find out what's important to them about your product or service. Conduct tests using different prospect appeals and determine which one works the best. Here's the bottom line philosophy and the foundation of every business that I own. Find out what people want and need, then make it easy for them to get it. It's no different than what I'm saying right here. Prospects have a nature. You want to find out from them. Ask questions. What is it about this home buying process or the home selling process that they're the most frustrated about? What do they really hate most about this process? What do they wish every real estate agent would do? If they were in the business of real estate, what service would they provide to someone just like them? And if they did, they know they'd be successful. You see, if you ask the right questions, people will tell you everything you need to know in order to serve their needs in the unique way they want to be served. If you don't believe it, try it. You won't believe how well it works. Let's go to the next emotional trigger, number 4. Objections. You guys have heard about this. You've been overcoming objections for years. So you understand the nature of your product or service. You know your prospect, and you have a great service or product. But your product or service has a flaw that would deter most of your prospects from buying or hiring you, or at least some of them. What do? You raise the flaw or objection to purchasing your product right up front in your ad copy or in your selling approach. And here's the action step. Determine any product or service feature that would normally be a negative for your prospect and bring that fact up early in the copy or sales presentation. Let me give you a prime example. I had an agent that I was coaching the other day, and he's a young guy. He's about 24 years old, and that has kept him from securing listings. He's been generating expired leads like crazy, and he goes on lots of listing presentations. And when we drilled down to find out why he wasn't securing a listing, he had to confess, well, they really just think that I'm too young and must not have the experience they need. So here's what I told him to do. Same thing that we're talking about here. I said, put that objection up front in advance and make that the reason why they should hire you. You know, Mr. and Mrs. Seller, I am young. I'm 24 years old. I've been in this business for only 2 years, but I've been working my whole life toward having this career. I don't have a pension or a trust fund. I have to succeed at this business, and succeed I will. I've been enrolled in marketing classes, and I have the free time that you need to have an agent dedicated to serving just your needs. In other words, if you list with me, I'll get your home sold. Why? Because you're one of my only clients, and I'll dedicate every bit of my time and professional services to serving your needs. If you ask me a question and I don't have the answer, I'll tell you I don't know, but I'll find out, and then I will, and then I'll contact you. Now, agents have been in the business for a long time. If you're looking for experienced agents, they probably have 30, 40, 50 clients that they're working with. This is why the number one objection or the number one concern that you hear about of consumers just like you about their real estate agent is they listed their home with them and never heard from them again. That won't happen if you hire me. So he put the objection up there in advance, and that took it away from them being able to use it. And then he used the objection. I had him use the objection as the very reason why they should hire him. Okay, let's go to the next emotional trigger, number 5. Objection resolution. And I just gave you the resolution, but let's go through it. You've raised the objection early in the copy or your presentation, and now you must resolve the objection. Otherwise, you'll be leaving the prospect with reinforcement on why he or she should not buy. You see, if the young man that I told you about just a minute ago had just raised that, yeah, I know I'm really young, and I've only been in the business for 2 years, but then he didn't overcome that, he'd be in serious trouble, because all he did was make that bigger. Whatever you focus on gets bigger. Whatever you talk about gets bigger. It's up to you to resolve it. Here's the action step. Show why the objection is really minor, or how you've overcome the objection, either by the product's other great features or by the fact that the bad feature are insignificant when compared to the product's good features. So I overcame that in the example I just gave you. Now, let's go to emotional trigger number 6, involvement and ownership. Many of you probably do this as second nature. To talk to the prospect as if he or she already owns the product and is trying it out. Make the prospects use their imaginations to feel more involved in the buying process. And here's the action step, in print and in person. Describe the prospect as actually using the product or owning it. Use copy and words such as, see how the unit feels to the touch, and other sensually descriptive phrases. In person, ask the prospect to hold something related or relating to the product, or to turn the knobs, to test drive the product, or kick the tires. Anything that involves them physically in the selling process. Now, you can do this when you're demonstrating a home. Have them sit down and imagine that they were living in that home and really get them involved in it. The more senses that you involve in the ownership of whatever it is that you're marketing, even if it's to decide to list with you. Imagine what it's going to be like when I get your home sold and you're in Timbuktu living where you want to live, doing what you want to do. Okay? You kind of shoot them in a time cannon. That's involvement and ownership, and it's a universal law. It's an emotional trigger that can be used, and it's very, very effective. Okay, let's go to emotional trigger number 7, integrity. And I'm sure most of you have, or all of you have, a great deal of integrity. But let's drill down, and I'll tell you exactly what I'm talking about. Here's what integrity is. Are you delivering on your promise? Does what you say represent what you indeed will do? Do your actions match your words? All this is critical. A prospect will be less likely to buy from you if there is a shadow of doubt that you're not dealing with integrity. And now for the action step. Make sure everything you say is truthful and that you match your words and your actions. Always make sure that you are not covering something up that might affect the prospect's satisfaction. And that is so critical. Integrity is sometimes about all we have, our honesty and our integrity, to be what we market to people. And you should know this. Before anyone will ever consider hiring you, they have to at least believe that the possibility of trust exists. And you have to have integrity, otherwise they won't even begin to think that they can trust you. Now, trust is earned one step at a time. So it's not something that should be instant. You shouldn't expect them to just throw in the towel and say, okay, we trust you, we surrender everything. No, I don't want them to do that, neither do you. What I am willing to do is if they give me the opportunity, I'll earn their trust one step at a time. And they'll be able to see my integrity because I will walk the walk, talk the talk, and if I tell them I'm going to do something, I do it. I used to have a guarantee that was similar to the Easy Exit Listing Agreement, but the Easy Exit Listing Agreement is a prime example of how you guarantee that you're going to end up doing what you say. You know why? Because they know that any really good salesperson can show up, do a listing presentation, and everybody sounds good. Don't you hear that all the time from sellers? Well, everybody sounded so good. Well, you want to sound different, and you want to be different. And one way to separate yourself from everyone else is with integrity. Okay, let's look at the next emotional trigger. That is emotional trigger number 8, storytelling. Everybody likes a story. It's an attention-getting technique that we have known and enjoyed since we were kids, you guys. A story provides a human element to your presentation and helps you bond with your prospect. Heck, it even makes you look more human. And now for the action step. Come up with a story surrounding your product or service that shows its use in a way that relates to your prospect. A great example of this would be if you're dealing with someone who thinks or is a candidate for a short sale. Talk to them about how you helped someone else in that very same situation. Tell them the story about how they were sweating it out. They didn't know what to do. It was getting down to a foreclosure date, and they still didn't know what to do, so they took a chance. They saw your ad, or they saw something online. They read your blog, and they contacted you. And once they did that, and then walked them through the steps, and the outcome was that they were able to walk away from $700,000 that they would still owe on their mortgage. They were able to walk away clean. Their credit will be just as good as new or pretty close to it within 2 years, and they couldn't be happier. Storytelling is the most effective way that I know of for people to buy into what you're telling them. It also, in the same sense, in that story I just told you, you're telling them what? That you were successful. That the outcome that they're looking for, those feelings that they want to feel when they hire you, that end result, because that's what people are buying from you and me. They're looking for an end result, okay? They're not looking for you to sell them something or sell something to them or sell something for them. What they're looking for is the way they're going to feel once that end result takes place. They're looking for you to bring resolution to them so they can get where they want to get, do what they want to do, and feel the way they want to feel. You should know this, that no human being, and there are no exceptions, we don't do anything without knowing first and believing that we're going to feel a certain way when we do it. For example, let's suppose I all of a sudden, put you guys on hold and said, I think I want to go get some ice cream. Well, I would have already had seen myself doing it in my head before I did anything. And then I would have to have somehow convinced myself that the feeling that I was going to have when I started eating that homemade ice cream and it was just melting around the edges, and I dragged my spoon around the edges there and got the stuff that was just as it was melting. That's my favorite, as you probably could tell. And I knew how good that was going to taste, and that was going to make me feel great. Once I had that feeling in my head and I visualized myself doing it, then I would, in fact, do it. So no one does anything without first believing that they're going to feel a certain way. And we'll talk more about that in some more of the marketing secrets coming your way soon. Okay, emotional trigger number 9, authority. Everybody likes an authority to rely on when making a buying decision. It makes a big difference if the prospect can buy a product from someone or somebody or a company that's recognized as an expert in the field. Here's the action step. Determine the areas of authority you specialize in and express these areas to your prospect. You might be the biggest, the smartest, the most equipped, or even the hardest working. Whatever the advantage, show your authority. Now here's the great news, you guys. Because you're learning how to become astute marketers. As a marketer, you get to declare anything. Okay? Because who's able to dispute it? Not tell a lie. Not be untruthful. Okay? Not have a lack of integrity. But if I say that I'm a recognized expert in the field of real estate, maybe it's my kids and my wife that recognize me as an expert. But if you're in this business of real estate, you're becoming more and more of an expert every day, are you not? Do you know more than the average person out there? You should. And even after this presentation, you will. So recognize expert in the field of real estate. Maybe you specialize in expired listings. So that's what you're expert at. You know, I specialize and am an expert at helping people who had their home on the market listed with one or more other real estate companies, and I think their home should have sold, but it didn't. I specialize and an expert at helping those people get their home sold so they can get on with their life. Okay? Now I worked a USP, a unique selling proposition, into that statement I just made, and I hope you're all taking notes because you might want to use some of the things that I've said. Okay? You can play this back over and over again, listen to it as many times as you want, but I would urge you to take some notes. So, we went through the action step, we went through the authority, and what you need to do. If you have any doubts about what you're best at, ask your past clients. Call 10 of them and ask them what they liked best about what you did. If they were to define it down to one area that you seem to be best at, that they thought you really excelled in, what would that be? They said, you know what? No one was better at communication than you, Rand. You called us back. You called every time you said you were going, every time the property was shown. You gave us the feedback both verbally and you mailed it to us or emailed it to us. And then that makes you an expert at that. You're an expert communicator. You might even put a unique selling proposition or a guarantee that if you call my office and I don't return your call within 30 minutes, I'll credit you $50 at the close of escrow from my commission for every time that happened. Now, if you make a claim like that, you better be able to live up to it. But that is something that will separate you from everyone else. And by the way, that's why you offer guarantees. Because by comparison to every other agent out there, all of which do not offer a guarantee, there's no comparison. You win. That's why guarantees, unique selling propositions, you all have to have not just one, but multiple unique selling propositions targeted at different groups and clusters of people. But that's for another time. Okay. So, authority, the action step, determine the areas of authority you specialize in. Call your clients if you need to. Okay, that's my recap. Now, for the emotional trigger number 10, it's proof of value. Regardless of the prospect's wealth, he or she wants to know that they are indeed providing good value, that you are providing good value. Truthful comparisons with other products or services, savings possible, or simply bargain pricing should be emphasized or superior results. If you get superior results. Now, I would not emphasize bargain pricing, but since those words were in this particular law, I wanted to include them. Let's go to the action step and then we'll talk about it. The action step, show the value through comparisons with other similar products or services. Make sure your comparisons are honest and that the value you claim is substantiated. So how might you do that in your business? Well, let's suppose that you say that you sell more homes than any other real estate agent in that area. And then you want to substantiate that claim and give proof to it. And you could do that like this. You know, Rand Smith sells more homes in the La Cresta area than any other realtor. And here's my proof. Last year, the average real estate agent sold an average of 7 homes a year. Last month, Rand sold 7 homes in La Cresta alone. So last month, Rand Smith had a relatively good year. No, don't say the last part, you guys. I'm just kidding about the last part. But that's going to give proof that if the average realtor sells an average of 7 homes a year, total, in every area, and you in this one area you specialize in, you sold 7 homes last month, they'll get the comparison. And is it fair? Sure. You can always find a statistic that'll be in your favor. If you're a new agent, Rand, what if I'm a new agent? Glad you asked. If you're a new agent, then you might say, you know, my team and I have a whole team of people use everyone's production. Or, you know, my office, if you're with Coldwell Bankers. And so Coldwell Banker and Rand Smith, I don't work for Coldwell Banker, I'm Real Estate by Rand. But as an example, you know, we outsold every other real estate agent in the area. You know, and then tell the example. The average real estate agent sold. Even though it's an unfair comparison in a way, you're the marketer. You get to choose what to compare it to. Now, you want to always be honest and not unethical. You want to be forthright. You want to have integrity. You want to adhere to the code of ethics that we all follow. And then some. Okay? And so if you're like me and travel to the beat of a higher drum, and you are accountable to someone at a higher level, such as God, which I am, then that's even a better way for you to be accountable and make sure that you don't cross the line. But marketing is about creating a perception, is it not? Really, everything you do is marketing, and it's creating a perception. Whether you think it is or want it to or not, it is. That's why the better that you control the message that you send out, the easier it will be for you to create the right perception. Because until and unless someone does a transaction with you and you serve their needs from start to finish and close the escrow, either on a home that they bought or a home that they sold, they really are just, it's their best guess as to who you are and whether you have integrity, isn't it? It's really nothing more than their perception of who you are to begin with. Even when they sign a listing agreement or a buyer broker, it's still that they're guessing. They're believing that the possibility of trust exists, and they're really guessing as to who you really are. Because they don't know that yet. You haven't earned their trust. They haven't found out through the process of an entire period of time, from start to finish, that you got the job done for them and how you performed, both in the heat of battle and on the good days. And they didn't know that you cared more about people than you should for your own well-being. But they found that out during that period. So marketing, especially in lead creation, it's about creating a perception. You're creating one anyway. So you may as well create the right perception. Okay, there are still 9 more emotional triggers that we're going to go through. If you haven't seen part 1, the first 1 through 10 of the emotional triggers, then you might want to go back and ensure that we have that series somewhere for you to get. If you don't, you can send me an email at real estate rebyrand at verizon.net. Okay, rebyrand at verizon.net. Okay, this is Rand Smith saying thank you very much for joining me today. Be blessed. Bye-bye.